Hello, Mech warriors. Welcome to Eclipse Ironworks Subsidiaries. We're here to showcase some of our wares to prospective buyers at their request. Today we have, in our testing grounds, we have Paradise on a Centurion CN9BL, and he will be testing out, oops, let's go back here. He will be testing out the medium binary laser, the heavy binary laser, and the light binary laser, as well as the coolant pod that we have available. We have Sumo in a 50-ton Huntress, and he, I should say, is running a sniper artillery piece and a medium laser, showcasing off our new artillery mech. We have Buckshot in a Rampage. Just find that here on the list. The Rampage is equipped with a large laser, 2 mediums, our new heavy rifle, and 2 Hellfire 5 Thunderbolt missile systems. And finally, we have Apex testing out the Hippogriff for us today. If we can find that up here, there it is. The Hippogriff is equipped with 4 medium lasers and 2 Hellfire 10 Thunderbolt missile systems. It does not, however, unlike the catapult on which it is modeled, have heatsink or have jump jets. It totally has heat sinks. On the other side of things, we have our first drone piloting a Hector, which is equipped with 2 large lasers, 2 medium binary lasers, and a light binary laser in the head. Drone number 2 is in our Griffin 3N, which is based off of the Star League Defense Force 2N. It has 2 SRM-6s, a large laser, and jump jets. Drone 3 is in our version of the Osprey. Lacking any Osprey chassis, we had to make do with a modified Shadowhawk chassis. And lacking Gauss rifles, we replaced the Gauss rifle with a heavy rifle. And lacking Endo Steel and Ferro, we had to replace the LRM-10 with 2 LRM-5s. You'll notice that the Osprey has 3 medium lasers for self-defense. And finally, Drone 4 is piloting another Rampage. It is the same variant as Buckshot is piloting. So, let's go into the testing ground here. And we will see what the different weapons and models look like. We do have to use the same mountings as the more ubiquitous equivalents, such as the large lasers, LRM-10s, and autocannons. But we at EIS, we try to make do with the best we can. And here we go. You'll have to forgive my use of our camera drone. I'm not the best at it, but here you'll see our Rampage. The rifle there on the left arm, the large laser in the right, and the 2 missile systems in the left torso. Over here you'll see our Huntress, which we had to use leftover Hunchback chassis to make. The artillery piece is here in the Hunch. Over here you'll see our Hippogriff, piloted by Apex. It uses the standard LRM mountings on the catapult, and we also had to use our leftover catapult chassis to build this variant. Our Centurion BL here, with all of its lasers. Unfortunately, we had to keep the missile covering, so the blazer that is located in the left torso unfortunately does not show up. Alright, so let's see what these guys can do against our drones. As you can see here, we can see our pilot's range brackets. The heavy binary laser deals slightly less damage than an AC-10. Our sniper artillery here does the equivalent of an AC-10. However, being hit by an artillery shell is quite disruptive. Let's see if we can position here. As you can also see, no doubt, the sniper artillery piece has extremely long range, but anything within this distance here will be within its minimum range, unfortunately. So don't let things get too close. The heavy rifle, like the heavy binary laser, does slightly less than an AC-10. It also carries less ammo per ton. The Hellfire missile systems all have the same range, just like the LRM, but they are a little bit shorter range than LRMs, but conversely they also have a shorter minimum range and deal all of their damage to a single component instead of sandpapering enemy mechs like LRMs do. They also carry less missiles per ton. And here we see our drones moving up. Drones aren't the best shots or pilots, but they get the job done. Let's see if we can move Paradise here up into visual range. It looks like it should be visual. You'll notice that the coolant pod can only be fired when you're targeting an enemy mech. We had to jury-rig the coolant pod into existing weapon systems to allow it to be triggered manually. And as a result of that, it can only be triggered when an enemy mech can be targeted. Fortunately, we were able to set the weapon's range to be roughly 900 meters. So as long as you've got a mech in range, you can use your coolant pods. Binary lasers do, I think it's 1.85 times, or no, sorry, 1.75 times the damage of a single medium laser, but they do weigh a ton and a half, cause twice as much heat buildup, and take up twice as much crit space, which is why the second medium laser, or medium binary laser, had to be moved into the torso. So as we can see here, our Huntress could fire on this Osprey, but it is within minimum range, so we're actually going to use the Huntress's jump jets to back up into decent range here. There it goes. And attempt an indirect fire attack. We are at a higher height range, so we will get the -1. But the weapon is, as you can see here, innately inaccurate. It gets a +1 modifier. And let's see if he hits. You'll also see that these weapons cause quite a bit of heat buildup. And we get a hit. And as you see, the mech is already unsteady just from a single sniper artillery hit. Paradise taking some long-range damage, probably from the Hector or the Rampage. Apex, however, is in perfect range. Well, almost perfect range. For an indirect Hellfire strike on this Osprey, which again, we did have to use existing Shadowhawk chassis to make. Unfortunately, Apex missed. The major weakness of the Hellfire system is that if the missile misses, all of your damage misses, whereas an equivalent LRM-10 would have 10 chances to hit. Let's get Buckshot up into range. So we don't want to build up too much heat. We don't need to be firing these medium lasers, but we will fire the two Hellfire 5s and the heavy rifle with the large laser. One of the strengths of this design is that while it does run a little hot, it almost always has a weapon in range, and therefore is always a threat. Got a hit there with the heavy rifle, and both missiles hit, as did the large laser, dealing quite a bit of damage, quite concentrated to that Osprey. The Rampage is, of course, based on the old RimWorld Republic mech used in the Amaris coup. It is a fairly cheap but rugged and dependable assault mech at 85 tons. Once again, we can get our hunters to fire. We think she will fire at that Rampage. Of course, as you can see, just firing twice in a row will cause overheating issues. And direct hit. Fortunately, soon we'll be taking a little bit of structure damage there from the heat. But we have caused that Rampage to become unsteady. Paradise absorbing more damage for us. But now it will be his turn to fire back. And we've instructed him to showcase the heat of binary lasers. So he's going to avoid the water for now. Fortunately, he'll still get his evasion bonus. And the light binary will be out of range. It has the same, all the binary lasers have the same range as their standard equivalents. And as you can see, firing just the heavy and two mediums cause a fair bit of heat. This design only has 17 or 18 heat sinks, and the binary laser itself causes 40 heat, twice that of a large laser. But it does have a coolant pod that we could use to reduce that heat by doubling the efficiency of all of the heat sinks in his engine. Fortunately, only the heat sinks in the engine are affected. But as we only get one use of that, I think for now we will just accept the heat as we are not quite over capacity. Unfortunately, he missed with the mediums, but as you can see, that heavy binary laser does quite a bit of concentrated damage with no ammunition. The heat buildup, of course, is a concern. It's not quite as heat efficient as two large lasers would be, but it saves a ton on weight, and of course deals all of its damage to the same component. We'll actually move Apex here up, see if she can pull a little bit of aggro. And since this is the only target we can see, we'll save our medium laser heat and just fire the two Hellfire 10s. solid hits with those. And as you can see, they do the equivalent damage of an AC 20. Or, my apologies, an AC 10. The Hellfire 20, however, does do the same damage as an AC 20. Hellfires come in 5, 10, 15, and 20, each doing the equivalent damage of a similar sized autocannon. We'll move up into the water here. Now at short range, the Hellfires will not be as effective, so we'll turn those off, but the Rampage can now bring all of its short range weaponry to bear, in addition to the heavy rifle and the large laser. Fortunately, this drone isn't quite that smart. Our AI programming is perhaps not the best in the inner sphere, but it does do to showcase the weapons. Alright, so we'll once again stay out of the water, but perhaps we can take down this Osprey. Move up to a higher angle to get a better to hit modifier, and of course that evasive. Now we would shut down from firing the heavy and medium binary lasers again, but this is where the coolant pod comes in handy. Perhaps. Alright, so we'll still shut down with just a heavy and one medium, but the coolant pod will reduce that to just overheating. Fortunately, as you'll be able to see, it is a single-use system. And there it goes. But our heat remains manageable. Our drone is backing off, which, since we have an artillery mech, may not have been the best idea, but as you can see, now that he is out a bit further and we are still up on high, we can lob another shell at him, but we will, again, this is the third time firing this weapon in a row, we will shut down. I think in this case it might be worth it to try to get that center torso hit. And boom. Poor Sumo's cooking in there, but at least we know the safety shutdown is working as intended. Here comes the Griffin 3N. As you can see, it is equipped with 2 SRM-6 launchers and a large laser. And while hot, does offer a potent medium to short range punch compared to your standard Griffin variants. Now, the standard Star League Defense Force 2N did have ECM, as well as Endo and Pharaoh and double heat sinks, as long with a ERPPC, but we had to make do with modern technology for 3025, and had to downgrade the system somewhat, but you still get a fairly effective brawler, which we will now target with our Hellfires. I believe with the Hellfire 10 you only get 6 missiles per ton, and I believe the Hippogriff carries 2 tons per launcher. This limits its battlefield endurance, but hopefully most mechs will be dead within using those 12 missiles per launcher. Back rampage up. And at 40%, I think I'll risk risk the misses. Now, we will get a fair amount of heat. Like I said, this mech isn't the most heat efficient. You won't want to alpha strike at every chance, but with careful heat management, the Rampage is still an effective mech at all ranges. Fortunately, that also means their Rampage is effective at all ranges. And Buckshot will take a fair amount of armor damage there, breaking through into structure on the left torso. We'll restart our Huntress. Whew. Those SRMs do cause quite a bit of stability damage. Alright, and now we will, in fact, move into the water since we have a nice shot on that Griffin. And we are in range for the light binary laser. The medium, however, again, these are quite hot weapons, will cause a shutdown, so we will leave it off for now. Surprisingly, that Hector decided to charge us. Now it does have I believe it's a light binary laser in the head, which is what just fired at the Centurion. However, the laser we had to use on that Hector actually fires outside the visible light spectrum, which can lead to some confusion on the battlefield, but pilots are usually pretty quick to pick up on it. We are going to continue rocking this Griffin, as it were. Only this time I will show a full alpha with the Hippogriff. Again, not the most heat-stable mech, but a little structure damage never hurt anyone. Should also be noticed that the Hellfires do not deal the same amount of structure damage, or not structure, rather stability damage as the LRMs. They still cause a fair bit, but being rocked by a single explosion, even if larger and more concentrated, is not quite the same as being blanketed in explosions such as from an LRM-20, or in the Griffin's case, 2 SRM-6 racks. Move Buckshot up to tank for us. And she prefers standing still and just wailing away on enemies, but she's a little toasty for that. As you can see, the heavy rifle also has a minimum range, although it is quite short. But even without the rifle or the missiles, the large laser and 2 mediums is still quite effective at short range. We actually tried to fit binary lasers onto the Rampage, but just couldn't find the weight or heat sinks to allow it to be an effective mech. We need let's engage in melee here with our light binary. One of the benefits to the light binary laser is that it does hit the same location with almost the same power as 2 small lasers. Although again, 2 smalls is more heat efficient for a little bit extra damage. And I think we will give our poor Centurion a little bit of artillery backup. We actually have I think that is a direct line of sight. It is. And not only do we have a height difference on the Hector aiding in accuracy, but being a larger mech offers a larger target. And thanks to the large amount of stability damage on the artillery and the damage that the Centurion inflicted with melee, we have knocked that mech down. If you have reliable ways of inflicting stability damage, such as LRMs or melee, the sniper artillery will... Oof, that was a rough hit by the Hector. As I was saying, you will have a reliable way of knocking mechs down while dealing, I would say, efficient damage. Everybody knows that currently the AC-10 is one of the most feared weapons on the battlefield, with its ability to instantly decapitate mechs in one shot. This artillery piece can do the same thing with the added bonus of range and stability damage, of course, at the expense of weight and a minimum range and heat. As our Centurion is currently getting wrecked by that 70-ton heavy mech. We'll give it a little bit of fire support here. Fortunately, both Hellfires found the same torso and have knocked it out. I'm not really sure why that drone is preferring melee instead of standing back as most pilots do and using the large and medium lasers. Well, large lasers and the two medium binary lasers. But that's the price of using drones. As you'll see though, the Rampage, while effective at short ranges, only has its fists and legs for melee combat. It lacks any anti-personnel or melee type weapons such as small lasers or machine guns. So it is definitely more effective outside of melee. I would say the same about the Hector, but our drone apparently disagrees. Unfortunately, we have lost our heavy binary and light binary laser, but the two mediums should still offer a solid medium range punch, almost being the equivalent of damage of twice as many medium lasers. And thanks to the water we are standing in, doubling the effectiveness of all of our heat sinks, hopefully we can do some solid damage. Oh, fortunately Paradise missed with both shots. As you can see, the Huntress does have a medium laser for self-defense, but I don't think we're quite desperate enough to have to use it in that capacity. It does only have 64, I believe, percent armor, but I think in our case it will be worth it to just slide to the left a little bit here to get a better shot on that Hector. Is causing issues, and just ignore the Griffin 3N, which is currently having heat issues, to get another solid shot on that Hector. Got a leg hit, but again, knocked it down thanks to the previous stability damage dealt by the Rampage. Well, the Hector's finally decided to use its lasers, of which only half remain. I was going to say disregard that. Fortunately, jump jets also produce a large amount of heat. Looks like 70% is the best chance we're going to get, so we are going to move to maximum offensive range. Still, fortunately, inside the minimum range of the Hellfires. And we will switch to our medium laser battery. Now, we have enough heat sinks to hopefully the subsequent turns, if we resume firing the Hellfires, we won't have too many heat issues, but again, a little bit of structure damage never killed anyone. And with some solid hits, I believe that the total damage output there was worth the structure damage. Actually, Buckshot has lost her left torso, which I believe was carrying most of her long-range weaponry. Oh, fortunately, it was her lasers that were hit. I say fortunate, but you know how it is. Allowing us to attempt to run away. You see, it keeps saying that I'm going to be in range if I move here, but I'm really not, I don't think. Well, we'll see what we can do. So, lacking the short-range weaponry and the Hector having already taken a beating, we are going to focus on this enemy rampage, which will give us full 90% hit chances. Fortunately, one of the Hellfires missed, but still put out some solid damage there. Fortunately, we still can't get into the rear of this Hector, but hopefully, if we attack from the side arc here and keep our facing both mechs, we can get some damage out on the CT or attempt to take out the rest of its weapons. Much like the small laser in the Hector, the left torso medium laser also fires outside of the visible light spectrum. I will have to talk to the engineers behind the project for information on exactly why that occurs. Again, we want to put some distance between our Huntress and the Griffin, but still want to be able to send ordnance downrange. Again, we'll be taking some structure damage, but as long as we don't fire next turn, we won't have to worry about overheating. Paradise valiantly trying to dodge, but dodging the medium binary, but getting nailed by the Hector's large laser. We are hoping that once we obtain the appropriate Marauder models, we will be able to slightly increase some space in the Hector chassis. We're kind of building a Franken-mech between, at least planning to build a bit of a Franken-mech between the Marauder and Hector base chassis. Now again, I'm not going to worry about that Griffin. And instead I'm going to keep punishing this Hector for being a little out of cover, you could say. We've got overheat warning, but it doesn't look like we're going to shut down, so we'll risk it. Two solid hits. Fortunately, being a 70-tonner, the Hector is quite durable. And there goes Paradise's head. We can only hope that he ejected in time. We at EIS believe in live fire exercises, but to limit the loss of life, we do use drones for the opposition, hoping to limit our pilot's injuries due to the drone's inaccuracies. Not to worry though, they have all signed safety waivers. Want to keep Buckshot backing up maybe? No. In fact, we are going to use her preference for standing still to soak damage and put more damage downrange on this rampage. Now, while the heavy rifles, as you saw, won't directly headshot a mech if it's standing in cover, which I believe Paradise had already taken a little bit of damage to his cockpit, and with the damage those rifles do, a little bit is all it takes. Now, I believe if we fire this again, we will shut down, so instead we're going to take a little bit more structure damage and get the heck out of Dodge, as the kids say. Won't do much for our cooling efforts, but it will position us in a much better position. In fact, I believe if you rated a pilot's skills and piloting ability out of 10, I believe these drones are rated at a 4 in each category that one would hypothetically rate a pilot skill. Again, moving and shooting does cause a little bit of heat buildup, but the danger of the Griffin is its short-range missiles, not so much the single large laser. Fortunately, that will be enough to overheat us, so we'll just fire the one missile assist. Now, we didn't see it there, as sometimes our cameras don't pick up the missiles firing. It happens with both LRMs and the Thunderbolts on my end, due to our facilities requiring a camera upgrade, I suppose. But we did hit with a single missile, and it was enough to deal significant damage to that Hector, which, if we zoom the camera in on it, is now missing both of its side torsos. That Rampage is still a significant threat, however. Unfortunately, being a heavy 70-tonner, the Hector with its light binary laser is still a solid threat due to its ability to just ram other mechs at high speed. Fortunately, even with a 90% chance to hit, Buckshot was unable to take out that Hector like I had hoped. Here come the SRMs again. And we are just going to brace this turn to cool down our artillery. This might be a little bit of overkill, firing both Hellfires at the mostly stripped Hector, but ain't no kill like overkill. Again, our camos were mispositioned to actually catch the missiles firing, but she did manage to take out the center torso. The mostly intact drone Rampage is engaging in melee with my quite beat up Rampage, and it has been knocked down. Where the advantage is now back in our favor with 3 on 2. In fact, just to get some structure damage, or some stability damage, I will get Buckshot to attack in melee. More SRMs from the Griffin will unfortunately destroy my Rampage. Perhaps I ignored the Griffin for too long. Now I have made a mistake. I should have told Sumo here to wait. I somehow need to get him in range and vision to use his artillery to knock that mech down, but I don't think it's going to happen. Unfortunately, he is just out of range of vision, so I will have to wait till next turn. I don't really want to, but I will have to move. Apex up. Probably have to rely on her medium laser battery now. Fortunately, I can fire all 4 without powering down. Got another ammo crit. And crit the heavy rifle. Even with the ammo and weapon crits we've so far put on it, it's still an 85-ton mech and therefore dangerous. But we now have line of sight. And by the look of it, according to our sensors, a fair amount of stability issues on that Rampage. So hopefully, thanks to our size and height differences, you can make up for our weapon's inherent inaccuracy and take out that left torso, knocking down the mech in the meantime. This should hopefully give our Hippogriff the chance to make some called shots. I'm not quite sure what that Griffin drone is doing. Perhaps just trying to confuse me. Now I will shut down here. No, I will just fire 3 so that I can maintain line of sight, because if Apex shuts down, our sniper can't shoot. We will try to target that center torso, which we will only land 1 hit on. I know the Griffin is still quite dangerous, even though it is a little beat up, but the Rampage is by far the deadlier mech. And unfortunately, by the look of it, the Hippogriff has already taken a fair bit of structure damage. Oh, once again, we'll fire the artillery, nailing the center torso, taking a little bit more structure damage, but not quite shutting down. Although next turn, if we want to remain operational, we will have to hold off on the artillery. Gonna do something risky here. Alright, so I can't quite get to where I wanted, but if I can get her into the water, hopefully I can help overcome these heat issues. Well, apparently, there we go. Fortunately, she hit the head and leg, which is not where I wanted her to hit, even though usually a headshot is a good thing. Although then again, perhaps that headshot is why the Rampage missed in melee. Sumo will shut down here, but I think it's worth the risk. Hopefully he can maintain that accuracy that I've come to depend on in this match against these drones. And there it is. Sumo manages it again with his precision strike, ignoring the guarded and cover. And he manages to nail the CT and takes it out. Fortunately, those missiles hit both the cockpit and knocked down my Hippogriff, causing my pilot to take 2 more injuries, which will affect her accuracy. Fortunately, the water has mostly cooled her down. And we will be able to jump to further across the river, still in water, to be able to throw in some Hellfires. Hopefully we'll hit that left leg. Right torso destruction, not bad. Takes out the large laser and 1S from 6 rack. Though of course, due to melee, unless the mech is actually dead, it is still a threat. And while this might preclude... Oh, gotta restart. This might prevent some mechs from being salvageable. It's better to destroy a mech, I think, than be destroyed by a rear charging headbutt that you hadn't anticipated. Once again showcasing the Hippogriff's mobility. This one apparently does have jump jets, which I didn't think it had, to be totally honest. Fortunately, we jumped a little too far, and we will have to brace this turn. May have to check with engineering. I was positive they told me that the Hippogriff did not have jump jets. And like I was saying, mechs are always dangerous until they are dead. That the melee charge by the Griffin just took out one of my torsos, but my apologies, apparently somebody let a cat in. Hopefully Sumo will be able to save the day once again. This time with an indirect shot over this mountain. Hopefully he doesn't hit the mountain. He does that sometimes. Fortunately, he did in fact hit the mountain. This should hopefully show that Griffin why heavier mechs are superior at melee. this comes down to just a slugging fest between the two mechs, the Hippogriff should be able to win handily thanks to its increased mass and armor. Though she keeps getting knocked down. Oh. Alright. 70%. Let's do it, Sumo. And there we go. Nailed the Griffin. Didn't hit the torso, or center torso like I was hoping, but did knock down and injure the pilot. I'm going to stand the Hippogriff up, and since it currently has jump jets, we're going to go for style points and try to DFA the Griffin. I don't know about you guys, but I would not want 70 tons falling on me. And there we go. And here we see the after-action report. Our Huntress, I don't even think was touched that fight. Most of that structure damage was actually from overheating. But hopefully that showcased the effectiveness of artillery if you can keep it away from the enemy. Our drones have yet to learn to rush into the short range, preferring to play the range game, which if you're against a superior ranged force never works well for you. Hopefully that showcases some of the weapons available from Eclipse Ironworks Subsidiaries and has piqued your interest in committing to some purchases. That said, hope you guys stay safe out there on the battlefield and hopefully pay us lots of money. Farewell for now.